It is 4:11 on Wednesday, May 19th. I hereby call to order this special board meeting of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. Shauna, if you could get a roll call, please.
Thank you. Director Aguera.
Here.
Director Bender.
Here.
Director Harris.
Here.
Vice President Laliotis.
Here.
President Finn.
Here.
Thank you.
And I just saw Council Gross log on, so perfect. We're going to defer the pledge this evening. And do we have any changes to the agenda, Brian?
I do not have any changes this afternoon.
Very good, which brings us to the public comment section. This is time that is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter will be addressed at the time that item is considered. So tonight, I know that we do have one general public comment, and I will just say that we did receive it. I am not going to read it into the record tonight because it appears that we may have a breach in our closed session protocols that we will need to address. So that is that. Do we have any other public comment this evening that's not related to the agendized matter?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Which brings us to director update. This is the time for the directors to comment on any item within the purview of the district that is not on the agenda. So if we have any director comment, go ahead and raise your hand and I will recognize you. Okay, Director Harris.
I just want to welcome and give a thank you to our community members, our customers, and others who have joined our meeting tonight. It's been a bit of a roller coaster this week for the PUD. First off, I want to congratulate Brian Wright for being offered the general manager position. It was not a unanimous decision, but he was a successful candidate, and I will be supporting the board's decision to hire him and strive to make his position with the PUD and the community a success. Second, there was an article in Moonshine Inc. that shed light on opportunities, in my opinion, for the PUD to improve on relationships and processes. My stance when I ran was for transparency and fiscal responsibility, and I hold true to those ideals as a member of this PUD board. And third, it is an exciting time as 6 months work is coming to a close tonight with the recommended adoption of the strategic plan, and I look forward to Brian's presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Do we have any other director comments this evening? Okay, I'll just give a really quick update. I fully utilized the CMUA newsletter this week and did attend a couple of their Zoominars about serving in public power by the APPA, and it was interesting, and also a podcast about the Los Angeles Water and Power District and how they are commissioned a large study that they just finished, the results about how they're going to transition to 100% clean and renewable energy. And I will just share with everybody else that our problems are everybody's problems right now. We all have exactly the same concerns. We're all thinking about things in lots of the same ways. So in a certain way, that's really quite good news, because the more people who are working on the challenges, the more likely we are to come to some good solutions. And both of those Zoominars were very optimistic and hopeful and helpful. So I'll bring them up as we consider different topics. But it was a good little week for me with PUD related education. And that's my update. So general manager's update. Brian, do you have an update for us this week?
In the interest of time, and I know I will be speaking a lot this evening, I have no updates. I will defer to my presentation with Pamela Hurd Associates on the strategic plan. So none tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Which brings us right to action item number 8, consideration to adopt the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District's 2021-2024 strategic plan. And this item involves adopting the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District strategic plan, including the updated mission statement. So with that, I'm going to enjoy the main attraction this evening and hand it off to Pam Hobday.
Brian, I'm going to hand it back to Brian, President Finn, to just kick it off.
All right, I'm gonna start by sharing my screen here. I apologize for the sirens in the background. All right, this evening we do have for you the action item number 8, the consideration to adopt the district's 2021 and 2024 strategic plan. And we are very excited. We have a presentation first. We'll stop along the way with some discussions and opportunities to get feedback, lessons learned, reflections. We're looking for a great conversation, and ultimately at the end of this presentation, a consideration to adopt. So, Pam, would you like to start with the ground rules?
Sure. So I wanted you all to see this photo that I took from, just ran across the street a couple of weeks ago, and just remembering the beautiful place we all live and this reflection in the water. I just, isn't it just gorgeous? It's just really spectacular. So tonight is monumental because it's our last workshop number 8, covering 9 months of a lot of hard work together and a lot of high-level critical thinking. And so just a reminder, this is a workshop. We're going to be talking with staff as well as the board. And our ground rules that we followed from the beginning are having mutual respect, active listening. Definitely, we've done a lot of strategic thinking, knowing there's no wrong answer, collaboration, and mutual respect. So, Brian, we've really come full circle, right?
Yeah, so as you can recall, we began this process, or we really began the process last summer when the board identified the need for the district to come up with a strategic plan, to have a guiding document to identify where we are now and where we want to be, a vision of where we want to be in the future, and how do we get there. And that's really, at the end of the day, what the strategic plan is all about. As we've mentioned, it's a fluid and ever-changing document as we cross new thresholds and learn new lessons and identify new opportunities. But for the first time that I'm aware of, the district has taken the opportunity, engage with a consultant, with the board, with staff, with the community to really develop a strategic plan. And that's included the board identifying a vision of where this district would like to be, where the community would like to be, identifying and defining some goals, and really peeling the onion back on where we want to be in terms of our community as a district. And I think that's really important. It's really commendable of this board and of this community and staff for engaging on this in this adventure. And I'm looking forward to presenting with Pam and engaging with you all over the next several slides on where we've been throughout this circle. So kind of painting the picture of where we were over the last 9 months, starting with September 2nd last year and where we are today.
So again, as Brian said, there's always a breathing room to sit back and celebrate a little bit, review this journey, and then finally with the staff recommendation for you to have the opportunity to adopt the strategic plan and the revised mission statement. And I wanted to just, before we go into the next slide, Brian and I really had a fun time putting the thoughts together to share with you tonight. And they're not your normal, what we would do in just reviewing all that's been done. We really wanted to begin with sharing with you going back to the very first workshop that we all did together. And I hope you will all remember this one, where I ask you the question, why do a strategic plan? Why do you really want to do this? And that discussion that night was one of the best discussions I think we've had. And Brian and I putting our notes together, what we'd like to do is share with you what you said and what staff said. And then we want to ask you, out of these 10 or so bullets, what are the ones that you really want to continue being focused on as a board and as staff? So I'll read the first several, Brian will read the next, and then we'll have a discussion about your thoughts. But the three focus areas that you talked about were being pioneers, being partners, and positioning the district. So the first bullet, to engage the community, board of directors and staff to bring resources to the community by focusing on resiliency and sustainability. And then we have this really great discussion about pioneering new ideas. And the word pioneer, you all really liked. To partner with customers and communities, to position for future partnerships, to give the opportunity for the board and staff to engage with our stakeholders and community, to focus on collaborative initiatives that will make a difference, not only in our district, but our community. So when you think about those first five, think about what we've done, have we accomplished those? And this was our initial brainstorming workshop. So it really is high level critical thinking. Brian.
Yeah, those initial board workshops really developed some really rich discussion on why we're engaging on this process or in this process. And so to continue to build a vibrant culture during challenging times and beyond, this is rooted with that comment of economic engine and providing stability for this community. To provide the focused financial long-term health for the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District by developing overarching goals and strategies and projects to achieve these goals. To evaluate processes and systems that need to be reinvented to ensure effectiveness and efficiencies for our ratepayers, employees, and the community. To provide a high level of transparency and inclusivity. And finally, to provide a roadmap for the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District's future.
So President Finn and Board of Directors, let's start with you, President Finn. What are the key concepts that you really feel that we not only accomplished, but you want to see us continue to focus on?
For me, the opportunity for the board and staff to engage with our stakeholders and community to focus on collaborative initiatives. That still resonates very strongly with me. And in fact, we are engaging in that right now. I am participating in groups that are really excited and dedicated to doing just that. It's the first time that I have seen districts really start to walk this talk. Like all of us have been talking it for a couple of years now, but now, and I think our process here played a big role in actually starting some of these real collaborative adventures, I guess I will call them. keeping an eye on our processes and systems that need to be reinvented. Again, pioneering new ideas ties right into both of those things. We know that we have lots of things that we do very well and have done them very well. But we also know that the future isn't going to look like the past. The present doesn't look like the past. Things are changing. To use a phrase that I heard yesterday that I quite liked, the evolutionary pace is now a revolutionary pace. Things are changing that quickly. Like the utility district has been able to simply evolve, and now a point where we almost have to revolutionize our thoughts and our minds. So those things are still really powerful, meaningful, and I think necessary. So yay for us.
Director Laliotis, Vice President Laliotis.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Krista, for your comments. There's a lot of good stuff in these bullets, probably too much to focus on. But what I kind of want to wrap it all up into one concept is just the creating a process in which no stakeholders were excluded, and providing an example to the community, to the other special districts, other local government agencies, of number one, that we're here and we're paying attention, and we do consider ourselves an important part of this community, and hopefully providing, some framework for which I believe other agencies have taken this approach, but I think we've elevated it to the next level. And hopefully this serves as a springboard for all the local agencies to work with the community on tackling specific issues and regional issues. So really excited that we went through all this effort and all this work, because I really think it will have a positive impact, not only within our own strategic plan, but within the community and other local agencies' approach to strategic planning and community initiatives.
That's a great observation, Tony. Thank you. Director Harris.
I because I wasn't on the board, I actually did not participate in the discussions that you had initially, but I do like the focus on community and including the community in the PUD's programs and business. Thank you.
Great. Director Bender.
Find my unmute button there. Sorry. Pam, just pardon my brain cramp here. Can you repeat the question?
Of course. So as you look at these about 10 bullets, and these were things that we brainstormed at the very first workshop of why do a strategic plan. Which ideas do you really want us to continue moving forward with? What pops out at you now as we reread these?
Oh, okay. I really like the focused financial long-term health of the district. And evaluate processes and systems. I really like those two. And yeah, sorry, my brain was just distracted. I thought the meeting was at 6. I thought I had two hours, 2 hours to just regroup. Instead, I had negative 10 minutes.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, so,
That's really difficult.
Yeah,
But that's,
and then mention of the lies in the article last week. Just like, okay, I need to just regroup and focus on what's really important here, and that's the strategic plan. Because dang it, it's really exciting. It's been 2 years of intensely hard work. It doesn't matter if you were on the board then or now, because I mean, it's a working document, and it's really exciting that we're kicking this off. So don't think of my flusteredness as not, of my excitement is here. Yeah, so I may have missed some other things that I really like in this, but the list is long.
good.
So
You can always bring them up later. Don't
yeah,
forget.
thank you, Pam.
Yeah, of course. Director Aguera, as you think about this list, what just jumps out at you that you really want us to focus on?
Well, most of the things that we talked about and we discussed was all the undergrounding and 100% power, renewable, and those items kind of are automatic things for us. I mean, we're working on them anyway. And I'm glad that we emphasized the need to start this plan and see where we're going to start with these things. And another thing that came by, I've talked to a few people about this plan that we were working on. And one of the main concerns was they brought up broadband. They wanted broadband the most. And I just wonder if, I didn't read it, your plan all the way, Pam. I'm sorry, I haven't read this all the way.
That's okay.
And also, I like the, did we have the survey after we started this plan?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I was part of the first couple of them.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to go back over that survey in just a little bit, Joe. We really are.
That's what I read on the little time I had this in my hands. But the broadband was brought up mainly, and I kind of feel like the other things are automatic to what we're doing anyway, day-to-day basis. So
great.
Maybe we can push them along a little faster.
Okay.
That's good.
Thank you for those comments.
Sure.
And now I'm interested in staff. You've heard the board, Joe, Mike, Stephen, Shauna. Is Jillian on tonight, Brian?
No, Jillian's on vacation this week, but
Oh, okay.
we do have Mr. Poncelet, Mike Salmon, and Joe Horvath with us.
Okay, and Shauna.
And Shauna.
Okay, so let's start with you, Joe Horvath. When you look at this list, what, from a staff perspective, from that first night that we brainstormed as a workshop with board and staff, what resonates with you to really make sure we focus on continuing, these concepts moving forward?
Yes, thank you, Pam. I really appreciate all the comments that the directors have made. I agree with your comments. I'll just add my small 2 cents. I think from my perspective, at least, I think what we've done here with this plan is it's really the highest level of communication and collaboration that I have seen in my time at the district. So I'm really excited about what you have done, what we're doing together. So for me, that fifth bullet, the board and staff engaging with our stakeholders and the community to focus on things that will make a difference in our community really resonates with me. I believe, what we have done is something that has certainly set the standard for our future way that we'll do business and working out our plans, strategic plans and otherwise. We've really set the standard for ourselves, and I'm quite excited about what the kind of positive impact this will have going forward. So working together in that collaborative way with our staff, the community, to really make a difference in the future, that really has resonated with me. So
Great, thank you. Stephen Poncelet, what are you thinking?
Good evening, President Finn and board members and fellow staff and public. You know, there's a lot of good bullets up there, so it's hard to focus on just one. The top, engage to figure out how this district can help the community collaborate and focus on resiliency and sustainability. They're two really big words that mean a lot to a lot of people, but they're kind of at the core of a lot of agencies' discussions here locally. The last one is a roadmap. The plan gives some shared purpose. And, you know, with us all getting here together, I think that gives us a real powerful tool to leverage going forward. And then, you know, the customer survey, we learned so much. There's so much more to learn. The benchmarking, the focus groups, you know, I would like to see that continue, of course.
Yeah, and we're going to emphasize those more later too. So good that you mentioned them. Thank you. Mike.
Good evening, President Friend and members of the board. Thank you, Pam. I echo what Stephen and Joe said as well. The last one resonates with me the most, particularly as we roll into the budget cycle for 2022, 2023. Being lockstepped in with our initiatives and the roadmap that's provided through the strategic plan will help us be a good guidepost and a framework for our process for the next couple of years and beyond. Certainly readdressing and going through the values and what the values mean was very meaningful for me. It's where the rubber meets the road for the organization as a whole as well. So those are the two areas that I found the most benefit.
Thank you. Shauna.
Thank you, Pam. I'm going to keep my video off.
Okay.
Unstable. I think the two that really resonate for me is the opportunity for the board and staff together as a team to engage with our stakeholders and community. There was a lot of conversation about the evolution of our community, and the PUD being able to meet with the evolving changes in our community really resonates with me. And of course, to use innovation to evaluate processes and systems, you know, for more effective and efficiencies for our ratepayers and our employees is always a high level for me as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, President Finn, we have a lot of really cool items here. And Brian, as our new general manager, when you look at this list, and you definitely were part of all this brainstorming, but now in this new role, what are you excited about?
I have to say, I am going to be guilty of plagiarism here, but I absolutely love what Director Laliotis started off with, and I wrote it down with creating a process where no stakeholder is excluded. We talk about inclusion, but this is twisting the perspective around. This is more exhaustive, that we're including everyone and not excluding anyone within our communities. We use that plural many times throughout this workshop process. You know, ratepayers included, but there's communities within that ratepayer group. And I really love that statement. And it's not a bullet item here, but it clearly captures the sentiment across all those workshops. So I've stolen it, Director Laliotis, and I'm using it.
You can keep it.
That's great. Any other comments on this slide, Brian, or should we move forward?
I say we get.
This Joe. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to ask Pam if these points that we have in front of us, is there a page in this booklet with these points in it?
You know, we put these together as a reflection, but we certainly can add them, Joe, because they're really good, aren't they?
I think so. That should have been maybe at the first page. Because it really hits everything on it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm glad you like them as much. You know, you learn so much when you've spent a lot of time with multiple groups of people in the same organization and go back and just look at brainstorming, especially when all of you brainstormed and were really critically thinking. So these were great. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Brian, for letting me get you off there.
No, that was a great feedback, great comment, and we can absolutely include the slides along this process into some additions to the future kind of evolution of this plan. So great feedback. All right, the next slide.
So we have had this slide for 8 workshops. And I just want to emphasize, just when you think about that we started this process before COVID. And it's almost hard to even remember what happened, you know, January, February, March, April. And I can remember Krista, you and Brian and I talking about, should we put the strategic plan on hold? Should we push a pause button? There was so much going on. And as a board, you know, we said, no, let's keep going. And when you think about the timing of the community input, it was December and January. December was the written survey. Okay, that could have been very risky with the hard decisions the board had made in the change of leadership. And you still had the courage to say, let's see what the community thinks and feels. And then in January to have our focus groups. So the community board and the executive leadership team, as well as then involving employees, this is strategic planning pillars that does not happen in other entities, especially government entities. So few government entities engage the community in the same way you wanted to. So just want to remind us all of this, the timing of this, and you know, forging forth and moving from in-person workshops to Zoom. Brian, any other comments on this slide?
The pillars really, you know, it lays out the fundamental core components of this plan, this larger strategic plan. And it's how we'll carry this forward. As Director Aliota said about the stakeholders are all included in these pillars. Every stakeholder that we need to address and need to include and need to identify. And to Pam's comments of accomplishing this plan over the last 9 months with the COVID, with transition, with the elections, both nationally and locally, with the economic uncertainty of that COVID's had, and all of the other things we've been addressing as a community and as a district. This is quite an accomplishment and quite a document. So let's move forward through the slides, Pam.
Yeah. So next is painting the landscape. And you remember we started painting the landscape very, very early on. And painting the landscape is a process within strategic planning that focuses on traditional things that we do that we want to maintain. What are things that we're already doing well that we want to continue? What are innovative things that we really want to look at for the future? And then there's that visionary. What's out there? Where are we really taking the PUD and the community together? And These were the brainstormed bullet points from that workshop. Utilities can have a singular interest and thus create organizations, mindset, or inertia towards change. Risks associated with over and under leveraging of assets and structural constraints. It would be very easy for the organization to revert to silos and a silo mindset. Focus on becoming an economic engine for our communities. Become an integral part or standard bearer for this community. Develop partnerships everywhere. Create sustainable methods that support delivery to our community and have a high level of civic engagement. That was the very first workshop around painting the landscape. Those were your concepts. What do you all think of those as you look back on them?
Well, I'll just go ahead and start it. They're all still true and accurate. I mean, we identified the things that can hold us back, which are absolutely understandable. Again, we provide a basic necessity of life with water and electricity at this point. So of course we are going to be very conservative in a lot of ways. But I think the silo and the silo mindset, we've recognized that as a danger to progress at this point in time. And I still think that's true. I still think we continually have to remind ourselves that, we're expanding now. We're collaborating. We're doing the outreach between, again, not just this is the board's job, this is staff's job, this is the community's job. We are engaging with the community. We're engaging with other districts. I think all of these things, we did a good job. We were pretty thorough and and reading these, I remember where some of them came from and who said them.
Yes.
Believe it or not. And that's exactly, we're still walking all of these things. We know that we recognize that we have a great tradition. We understand that we need to be innovative in the moment, and we understand that we need a vision to move forward into that builds on all of these things. So it still, to me, rings very, very sincere, very true, very accurate.
Other director comments?
All good. Just, I like seeing those, and reminds us from many moons ago, and they're still relevant.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brian or Director Laliotis, any comments, or anyone else?
No, I'll just echo what Krista said, and and the focus on easy to revert to silos and a silo mindset, is very relevant, especially with it's a very distinct possibility when you have so many public agencies serving one community. And so realizing how narrow-minded that can make you look, and how, as you said at the beginning, or as that first bullet says, singular interest. When you combine singular interest with silos, you get a very closed-ended public agency. And I think recognizing that we don't have to work in a silo, even though we have very specific interests in the community, really is a mindset that we need to maintain moving forward.
Great. Brian, what are your thoughts as you reread these, thinking about, your new role again, and this really good work everyone did together?
When I see this slide, in particular, the graphic image on the right. It's, the tying together of many different thoughts and perspectives and roles here with the district, whether it be staff, the community, the board, etc. And the painting the landscape concept was applied in several different instances at several different points in this process. And what we found was that at all levels of the staff and the community, folks have a vision of what the future looks like. And it's important to incorporate that into this plan. And then as you'll see later on, really these wooded items here are, put into the SWAT process and really identifying how do we accomplish these and what direction we go. So it's the painting the landscape concept was relatively new here to the district, but it really resonated with a lot of folks, both on the outside and inside of the agency. So really great work.
Okay, let's move on.
So this is the district's mission statement. I want to kind of start off by mentioning that if you recall, last fall, we had some great discussions on modifying the district's mission statement to better reflect our strategic planning process and the goals identified by the board. And I'd like to read it, and then we'll talk about what was modified and what we're recommending to adopt this evening. The mission of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District is to provide reliable, high-quality utility and customer services while managing district resources in a safe, open, responsible, and environmentally sound manner at the lowest practical cost. And if you can remember, the board had a great discussion on incorporating customer services. The prior statement was specific to water and electric utility delivery. And this mission statement, the discussion the board had was really that we needed to, as a district, incorporate customer services, because at the end of the day, that's what this strategic plan is implementing, is our service to our community as stewards of resources and staff here. So let's have some comment on that. I want to see what folks, the boards, what you can recall in this process and what you like about moving forward with this. President Finn.
Yeah, I recall that that was another thing that we owe Tony. I seem to recall very specifically that he was the one that brought up customer services and was very eloquent in his defense of that. And obviously we were like, well, yeah, that made perfect sense, Tony. Thank you so much. And we absolutely incorporated it. And I think it really sort of stretched, again, our idea of ourself. And that is really invaluable when you start thinking about yourself in a different way. Like, yeah, we can do this and we can do it well, and we can be of service to better and to more communities. So I remember thinking that was a great improvement.
Yeah, the board went through a couple different versions, and as you mentioned, Director Aliotis provided some good, succinct verbiage there that really works. Director Aliotis, do you have any comments on it?
No, I just think it's an awesome statement. I mean, it really is, and it really encompasses. I was happy to add to it, but the fact of the matter is, we put this together as a group, and I really, it really elevates, what we're doing, and it brings in all kinds of different social and environmental, and our core focus is utility and customer service, and then it brings in all of these other, sort of socially environmental issues. And then it talks about fiscal responsibility. So I just, it's a very succinct and awesome statement. It means a lot. It can mean a lot to a variety of people. and a variety of different mindsets. So I think it's really an efficient statement that we put together.
Absolutely. Any other director comments or feedback?
I'm gonna in response, and also to what just Tony said, and it sparked again in my mind. It also, that opening up of the statement a little bit, it allows us to be more flexible and responsive to our community, and I think that's important for me to pull that out. You know, reading the strategic plan, and you guys, we included a lot of history in it, and it was good to really read that and think back and understand that early on we were very different than what we do now. And change is part of being the PUD, and that we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should embrace it. We should be flexible. We should understand that, you know, we've been involved in all sorts of things over the past 100 years, from the school district to started as a local generation company, you know, and that's just this statement harkens back and looks forward at the same time, allows us to be more open in our minds and understand those connections. So that's all from me. Oh.
Thank you.
And I was going to pipe in that, you know, it's concise, you know, it's nice. I'm glad that you guys, I wasn't there for creating this either, but it's always good to get the customer services in there, because I think customer service with a small utility makes us top notch. And then I always like to look at the bottom line and at the lowest practical cost. So I think you guys all did a very good job in creating this.
All right, thank you. Any other comments before we move on to the next slide?
It's an awesome statement. That sums it up. Next. No.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier the SWAT. Pam, do you want to start with this?
No, go for it.
So I mentioned when we were talking about painting the landscape and really developing the strategic levers. And part of the painting the landscape process, or the subsequent process, was to really engage in a SWAT. And those of you who are in, you know, different fields of profession, you're probably familiar with the acronym, but it's identifying the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's applied also in, you know, the larger picture strategic planning here with the district. But we also applied it to painting the landscape with staff and different operational groups. And so it really permeated across this process in order to ensure that this strategic plan at the end of the day was appropriately directed us in our larger vision. So it identifies what the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District does well. That was some great discussion, self-reflection by all groups here within the PUD and the board. Identifies gaps in organizational performance. Helps to minimize risks. That's really the purpose of the SWAT to begin with, is to really identify what the strengths and weaknesses are to mitigate or minimize those risks, and takes the greatest possible advantage of identifying opportunities for future success. And that's really what this strategic planning process was about, whether it be a board initiative, long-term goal, or one of the projects that we've identified in our strategic plan. And then also the opportunities for staff development, growth, that we'll explore a little bit later as well. So the SWAT process was an integral process, integral part of this process, as much as painting the landscape, really evaluating that landscape and how do we get there. Any comments on SWAT?
Just a reminder that in the strategic plan document itself is everything that Brian talked about and more. Really good critical thinking, strategic thinking around the SWAT. Okay, strategic levers. We were at Stella's at the Cedar House for our workshop, and we began talking about how do you identify goals. And part of painting the landscape is identifying 40,000 feet concepts that will lead you to your strategic goals. You start by identifying things that are really, really important to you. And we'd already done some really good brainstorming, and staff put together and worked very hard on doing a draft. I think we had, Brian, 12 or 14 different concepts. And you talked through these and came up with 8 strategic levers that were very important to you. And these levers, as you can see, you're very, very familiar with the language. And if we go to the next page, Brian, these 8 levers were turned into your identified board goals. So that process of really brainstorming concepts first, and then letting the board goals evolve out of your prioritization. Remember, we did Post-it notes, sticky notes. We prioritized your ideas. So Brian, what about going through the goals?
Yeah, so we have the board identified goals. The first one, and these aren't in order of importance or priority. These are just listed out. The first one here on top, manage for financial stability and resiliency. Second one here, environmental stewardship, create a sustainable, resilient environment for all our communities. Engage with our customers and communities in a welcoming and transparent way to identify opportunities. Take the best of private sector thinking to modernize the utility and add value to our communities. And then finally, developing an inclusive culture drives organizational integration and success.
You know, what's really important for you as a board to know is that you want broad, conceptual-based goals that can go for years. Changing goals isn't something you do every 3 to 4 years necessarily, unless they're very, very outdated. But these are broad-based enough. I can't imagine these focus areas not being important in 3 to 5 to 6 years, and that you could be able to nest your board initiatives each year that you want to emphasize underneath these.
Yeah, I have to say, in this process, going back one slide, as the board met in the workshops, you know, we traditionally see public boards meeting in a very organized and official environment on the dais, going through very procedural steps. In this workshop in particular, this board really rolled up their sleeves, was able to really engage and kind of debate and discuss and really think about moving from painting the landscape to these overarching goals for the district. And as Pam said, these goals are specific enough to establish, success or measure success, but broad enough to nest a wide range of projects that we wanted as a community and as a staff to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years. So a great job on this, and looking forward, as they're lined out in the strategic planning document, we can keep going back to these as we present to the community our projects in the future.
At that same workshop, I really love this. We introduced the idea of board initiatives. And that's where we had, if you remember, flip charts up, and each of you really started brainstorming on Post-it notes. What were passionate initiatives that you would like for us to talk about? And the themes, this is from our notes. I wanted to go back. These were the themes that you really wanted us to ask the community about. We had all these discussions. And then when we said, we are going to involve the community. And this workshop was in November. And remember, we had to get all the data to Adam Probolski's firm so that he could get questions together for the community survey. And here's what you wanted to be sure that we would validate. And that was the word the board used. How does our community feel about electrifying Truckee across the board? Ask about increased rates. Ask questions about broadband and would ratepayers pay extra for this opportunity? Take the community's pulse on biomass. Validate 100% renewable by 2027. Find out how the community feels about incorporating forest management into our portfolio. Ask about undergrounding electrical. Ask about replacing and rebuilding our water infrastructure. You wanted us to make sure that we ask the community in the survey these things, and then taking the results of the survey, that last green square, take the community's pulse and then prioritize with the focus groups. So that was your idea. And just think about that. It was rather brilliant, you guys. You know, let's go out, let's risk getting input, see what is said about these things, and then whatever those survey results were, let's then validate it with focus groups in 2 months. It was fast paced. Comments or memories on this? Do you remember? I mean, most of you will remember your Post-it notes.
I remember it very well. And I remember that whole, I guess it was just sort of 2 workshops in a row, really served as a kind of an aha moment for me of how do you turn ideas into the strategic levers, into the goals, into the initiatives. Like it really helped me to understand how you get things done and what that sort of looks like. And it's reading back on these, I'm like, yeah, okay, we still have a lot of good initiatives here that we're going to have to use again. I think we need to continue to make it a habit to engage with the community and ask them for their feedback and their prioritization, especially as we have these conversations. I mean, that's what this sort of has allowed us to do, is to begin a conversation with the community, and conversations continue. They're not static. Some of these are, like you said, they're going to go away. They're going to be the poor little dog, but others are going to rise up, and we're going to realize, oh goodness, electrifying Truckee, that's rising in importance and in sort of intensity. I mean, shoot, the F-150 Lightning truck just came out today. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of demand for EVs faster than we have been imagining. And just to keep us thinking and engaging and reflecting what this community is going to need. It's just really solid, just a really solid process. We get to do it again. And we're going to get to do it again and again. So yay. Nobody feel like you missed out, because you're going to get another chance.
Good. Any other comments from directors? Okay, let's move on. So now we get to the real community outreach that we were just talking about. So we, again, had the survey in December and the focus groups in January. And Brian, do you want to just review high level the community survey results?
We have that as a slide down here, don't we?
It's the next slide.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sorry, I'm moving on the Zoom, the screen blocks. Just a second here. can't read my own screen. So the Probolski research firm with Adam Probolski conducted the community survey with a total of approximately 1,000 community members that were contacted, with 400 people being fully surveyed. That's a pretty amazing number for the size of our community. I believe Probolski mentioned that getting these kind of numbers on statewide surveys are challenging enough, let alone a small community like Truckee. So this yielded a margin of error of plus or minus 5% with a confidence level of 95%. And so some of the key results here, you can see some really high numbers. 81% of respondents approved of the Truckee Donner PUD's job in providing water. 77% approved of the district's job in providing electricity. Almost 80% believe their general quality of life is positively impacted by the water and electric infrastructure. I'm going to repeat that. That should resonate with each of you as a board member. 80% believe that their general quality of life is positively impacted by water and electric infrastructure. 87% rate their customer experience positively. And then finally, 92% say they agree that the Truckee Donner PUD provides valuable services. And that's where we go back to the mission statement of providing utility and customer services. 92%, that's a staggering number there. In particular with, like we said before, what we've gone through in terms of the economic uncertainty of COVID impacts and national elections and the job markets and all the things we're aware of in our day-to-day lives. This survey was conducted right there in that December, January time period, and that should be noted as in this as well. So great data and great feedback. And it also should be a motivation for us in the strategic planning process to continue to carry that torch. So let's keep those numbers up.
Yeah, they're great benchmark. Now you have your own benchmark numbers to look at, to be able to, if they, and they will go up and down, be able to ask the question why, and celebrate. And remember, December is a very difficult month to do surveys, especially with the Probolski firm calling people. It's very difficult. So these are, as he said at the presentation to all of you, these are outstanding numbers. Okay, now, remember we wanted to validate what the community survey said about your initiatives. And so staff put together for you to review questions that we would be able to ask all focus groups. And leading up to that, and Stephen Poncelet, big shout out to you for all your hard work in both of, not only the written survey, but the focus groups. With Andrea Gutierrez of Ideal Wild, remember putting the puzzle pieces together. This was all the social media, including choosing community leaders to give 2-minute spots on why they appreciate the PUD. So our goal for the focus groups, and this was in January, was to have 300 registrants. In other words, we wanted 300 people registering for the focus groups. We had 540 with 251 attending. So really, really outstanding numbers. Next slide, Brian. And remember, we divided the community by neighborhoods. And we know from experience with other opportunities of focus groups that other folks have done in the community, that our community likes to meet together with their neighbors or meet new neighbors and new people, which we all experienced in these focus groups. And one of the biggest keys to the left under the community focus group was to strengthen the relationship of the district with the community. And there certainly was amazing feedback from this. And you received your prioritization for identification of your initiatives. And those are on the left and what then turned into task forces. Comments on this, anyone? It's a great reflection, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow, we really have done a lot of work. And by we, I mean staff. And a lot of people, the community as well, staff has really helped us put together a compelling case.
Yeah, and for staff, you know, these focus groups, remember these were all done on Zoom. And then we had to learn how to send people away to chat rooms. And then we had to do a train the trainer for everyone, all of staff who was going to be involved in the facilitation, because the facilitation is critical. And we did this in 7 days. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I also would like to add that this process, both the survey and the community focus groups, will change the way the district does work in the future. And I'd like to ask if Stephen Ponsley is still available, him to reflect as a PIO, what this has changed for us in terms of how we do things in the future. Stephen, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Brian. I think the district has always done a great job of building key relationships with kind of the key agency stakeholders and people who are active. And I think that's formed a strong basis for us, but we have a much broader customer base, and then we have broader community and communities. And with the realization that we kind of wanted to engage relationally at a broader level, we needed to address how do we do that. And I think that was a real key switch. And we learned a lot about social and digital and video and focus group and virtual and, you know, all the things that are kind of becoming the new normal. And so I think it has started to teach us how to engage with our communities. And I think we have an opportunity to build upon that.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks again, Stephen, for your amazing work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Brian. So just remember, I keep saying this, but I've only known 2 other government entities that have done this extensive a community outreach. 2. I'm sure there are more that I don't know about, but those are 2. And given everything that was going on and the times, the data is very compelling. Okay, then you were able to hear from the community. And remember when Adam Probolski and then we released the data from the focus groups, some of your passion projects weren't first. And we had that discussion. That was a difficult discussion. And I mean positive, difficult discussion. You know, you all were very open and honest about your feelings, and yet moving forward, here were the key board initiatives that were prioritized by the district, by our community focus groups. And then, Brian, the next slide, these were turned into the general manager board initiative task forces. And congratulations on every single one of you serving on one of these task forces. You know, it gave you perspective. And these task forces met several times. They identified the purpose and short-term goals. So Brian, share with us next steps.
Yeah, thank you. So as Pam mentioned, you all participated in in several of the general manager task forces. And again, we titled them general manager task forces because in reality, the strategic plan had not yet been adopted by the board, and these weren't adopted initiatives, but prospective initiatives. And so we were doing preliminary engagement with the community and key expertise in the community or those who have expressed interest in each of these initiatives. We met several times. and through those meetings identified the purpose of those committees and short-term goals. And so the next steps will be, after this consideration of adopting this strategic plan, is for staff to bring back to this board the discussions, either through workshops or agendized items for review in the public arena on what the next steps are for each of these initiatives. And those will come in the form of identifying timelines and key stakeholders and funding resources, and setting up milestones for the board and staff to achieve in terms of each of these initiatives. So I'll use, for example, one of the high ranking in terms of priority by the community was the broadband initiative. Staff will very soon, very early on, bring back to the board workshops and guidance and direction, or seeking guidance and direction on how to set up those initiatives moving forward. They may come in the form of board established committees. And we'll talk about that. We'll have some training and informational workshops with this board on what those committees look like, the structure, the requirements, and then really starting to pull in community engagement on how do we achieve these initiatives outside of just the district's involvement. So those will be the next steps for the initiatives once the strategic plan is adopted very early on here. And as we mentioned before, some of these initiatives are longer termed. They're long-term initiatives, and some of them are relatively immediate. There's been, a community that has expressed an immediate need for a broadband solution. So expect to hear or at least see from staff recommendations on how do we continue down that path and re-engage those committees and workshops. Any questions on this particular? I know there's a lot of question on how the next steps move forward. We have another opportunity here in this presentation to talk about next steps, but in particular with these initiatives, any questions at this time on how we move forward once this strategic plan is adopted?
I think, for this slide, and it's good if we are going to have a discussion, I will just save it for the discussion, more discussion. But I think this is what is in a lot of people's minds, is like how, like the same thing that was in my mind back in November. How do we get these ideas? And they turned them into levers, and then turned them into goals, and then turned them into this is really what our community wants. So it's the same. I suspect as we walk the path, it will become clear. And I suspect the strategic plan is going to play a real, more vital than we thought, role in actually getting these done, serving as a document that enables us to accomplish these things in and of itself, and which I'll elaborate on as we get further in with our goal discussion. So, meaning goals and how to determine the next steps. That's what I meant to say, the next steps discussion, not the goals discussion. We have our goals. We are very good and settled with our goals, but how to make these initiatives real. It's another exciting challenge.
Yeah, I can tell you that we continue to have public feedback, engagement, information streaming to us on these initiatives, and very, very soon in the coming weeks, coming months, staff will present to the board an update on those, what that looks like, and then look for direction from the board on establishing committees or allocating or tying resources to further development of the ideas. So look forward to that in the coming weeks and the coming months.
And just as a recommendation for all of you, as you're answering the why for each of these initiatives with the hows, remember it's really important to identify your roles as a board and as individuals. Just have that discussion.
All right. Any other questions on the task force updates? Okay, got thumbs up.
Now, what's interesting is we re-put this slide in. And what occurred to Brian and I is look up through the initiatives and the task and the general manager task force meetings, everything that happened with community input, and look how many of these things you accomplished. I mean, it's from the very first, why do a strategic plan? And look at all the processes and how many of these things you ticked off. It's amazing, actually. And there's a lot to celebrate here. I know I'm really proud of this for you and with you. It's wonderful. Okay, Brian.
All right, next we'd like to discuss and review the process of marrying values to behaviors and the work we've done with as a staff, as a public utility staff here at the district. And originally we had planned on Jillian Stewart, our HR manager, presenting this. She's out of the office this week. So I'll step in and make an attempt at covering for her on this, but I really am proud of the work that the staff has done across all levels in this engagement. The process began with employee meetings. And so we had 5 different employee meetings facilitated by the mid-level managers. Basically, the idea here is that we really wanted to provide an environment where mid-level managers and operational teams could meet together and really identify what behaviors they associate with values. And it was, first we started off with a sort of a train the trainer process. And that was really to establish a comfort level in having these discussions openly and, kind of freely as each of the operational teams. And so here we have a kind of a breakdown of the department participation. The electric department had 18 staff members join. The water department had 8. District clerk, IT, and a few linemen had a team of 7 meet up. Admin services had 11 employees join. And then the human resources, ELT, and general manager office, 7 of us also joined that process. So you can see 51 out of 65 employees, 78% of the staff had the opportunity to join us. And I have to, remind everyone, this was a voluntary meeting, basically an opportunity to really have a discussion on what behaviors do we tie to values. And I attended a few of them. I really wanted this to be, a free-flowing discussion, but just stepped in on a few of them to hear the discussions. And they were really great discussions amongst team members, operational groups, and colleagues discussing what their expectations were for values and what behaviors, were tied to those. And so what that does, we talked about it in one of the earlier workshops, was that now as a staff, all 65 of them and those to come on board in the future really know how each other view values and what behaviors they tie to those. And so it really gives us an opportunity to communicate better, inspect expectations, and really work together more cohesively as a team when we understand everyone's perspective. Jillian, with her work with staff and those meetings, also developed some projects and goals to engage in over the next 3 years under the guides of the strategic plan. And this is professional development engagement. There's some great projects here. Again, we repurposed Director Laliotis' Culture Club and put it into our own paradigm here. But the Culture Club is really about having staff outside of working at the desk really get together and work collaboratively on projects that may be outside of their normal day-to-day work and start to really build themselves into this community in their role as a PUD teammate. Second, we have create and champion a recognition program that aligns with staff development goals and core values. This is all about recognizing high level of performance and kind of honoring our values here at the district. We've touched on this program in the past. Jillian and her team really want to further develop it, and get some creative input from staff on how do we create a more dynamic program here that staff can really champion across the board. And next, develop a comprehensive and inclusive new hire onboarding and orientation program. This is something that we've, in our kind of meetings and interviews with staff along the way, is really developing an opportunity and a program for new hires or those transferring from one department to the next can really have an opportunity to explore and onboard and get oriented with their new role here at the district. Continue to connect district values to performance goals with a focus on development through process updates such as interview practices, performance management, and through facilitating cross-departmental engagement opportunities. Over the last couple of months, we've had some discussions about setting performance goals, conducting performance evaluations, and having cross-departmental engagement. And so we hear a lot of times terms like 360 review or multi-departmental reviews. And the intent here through this strategic plan is to really develop a program where our performance goals and expectations are tied to the strategic plan and our values. And we're going to be breaking down kind of the boundaries between operational groups and really allow different departments or different teams to utilize lessons learned from each other on how to either improve performance or improve, the culture of their own work group. And then develop standard operating procedures, employee toolkit. One of the ideas that came out of our discussions in work groups was that having a single source or single location where staff can find important employee information. It may be stuff about benefits, it may be stuff about standard operating procedures or safety manuals, but really establishing a toolkit on all of the employee resources so that everyone's familiar with where they are, they're able to easily access them and utilize them. And then finally, establish a leadership academy for staff to identify and implement education and personal development opportunities. When we did the painting the landscape process early on in the strategic planning, this came out of the discussions is how do we provide as a district learning opportunities and development opportunities. There's always training, our JPA memberships, AQUA, AWWA, NCPA, there's educational development programs, but really establishing an academy where there is progressive development and staff individually can identify their own goals, either within the district or elsewhere, but they can identify their own goals and how to get there and create a roadmap for themselves through an academy. So Julian's really excited on working with a team of staff members on how to develop that, implement it, and carry it out. I'm actually in particular really excited about this because I think internal growth and education is key to a rewarding work environment. So we're really looking forward to be able to provide feedback to the board later on down the line on the successes of this program.
And just want to remind everyone, remember the pillars, employees and the community anchor those pillars with the board and ELT in the center. So these great opportunities for employees are very exciting. Okay, now Brian and I are going to talk about implementation strategies and metrics for this plan. So you have a plan that either nests on your computer or you got a printed copy of it. But I want to talk a little bit about this and then turn it over to Brian. This document is your framework or kind of like the floor of your house. And it's the first plan. And the next plan will build on this, and it may be a lot shorter. It may, you may only have updates on some of the goals and on some of the projects. They're ongoing. It changes every single year. But what I want you to know that's really important is as the benchmark, and I'm going to use that word again for you, everything that we've done is in one place. So you can just go back and look at it. Now, what's important about this slide is each one of these processes that were part of the strategic planning process is what funding agencies like to look at to see if you really are capable of them granting you large amounts of money and you handling it. In other words, how are you going to put a project into play using project management and integrate it into the utility? Let's say you were awarded $14 million, like another one of my clients was, in 9 days from the feds. And what the feds loved and the feedback was, wow, from your strategic plan, and all I did was fill out the application, it was 5 pages, and send the strategic plan. They knew that there was high capability of tracking not only data, but processes, structure, systems, and that the board was engaged in this. So just want to remind you of what you use this first initial document for. And then Brian, as you look at all these things, you know, what are you going to bring back to the board and when? And I think that's the next slide.
Yeah, so each of these items here laid out in front of you on the slide, we've discussed or reviewed over the course of the last 9 months or the last 8 workshops. And these are all either tools or metrics or mechanisms, so to speak, that staff will be presenting to the community and to this board for updates, analysis, recommendations, requests. There's a lot of different components of the strategic plan over the next 4 years, 3 years. But these tools and metrics are what we'll become familiar with over the next couple of years on how we present as a staff to the board and this community. And they're all, you know, tools for transparency and understanding of where the district's going and where we are in relation to our strategic plan. So, sorry, I hit the button again. For example, the cash cow analysis is an example of it in the strategic plan. We talked about that in the future when we need to present some analytics on whether a project is worth investing in, whether it's worth continuing to invest in, or we need to expand or maybe withdraw or retract from it a little bit. That cash cow analysis is in terms of how we will present to the board in the future. Monday.com, we reviewed that last time as basically a project management and workflow tool. And then in the strategic plan, I believe it's about midway through page 24, there are a list of capital projects, important projects for district sustainability and reliability. And some of these have already been approved in the 2020, 2021 budget, but in the future budget process, we'll be reverting back to this to talk about where certain projects fit within the larger strategic plan and our goals. And obviously, there's always a huge financial component to everything we present. And so financial modeling will incorporate all of these as Mike Salmon, our CFO, presents the upcoming workshops on the 2022-2023 budget. And then finally, you see the board initiatives. We will, through the mechanisms that we discuss, review, and implement in the future, whether it be committees or workshops, continually update the board periodically as we make progress or meet milestones. I envision that as we kind of settle into this process, at a minimum, you'll see these tools presented to you quarterly on where we are with different initiatives, different projects, or development internally. Any questions on these tools and metrics?
Brian, I just got to mention the Monday.com thing. We've been talking about it for a year here at the PUD, and I finally dove in a couple of weeks ago, and it's pretty darn exciting. lately the building industry is just insanity. And it's like drinking from a fire hose. And it just immediately showed where, I was lacking regarding project management. So, just doing this process with, doing this strategic plan, all this stuff, learning. And I realized, wow, it's really applicable and my employees are really liking it. So I just wanted to pass that on. I'm know a lot about it now, and I'm glad that I learned about it here and that you're using it, and it's pretty exciting. So thank you.
Absolutely. We'll see more of it in the future, as well as the cash cow, the environmental social governance model, and the strategic plan. You're going to see that document in many of our presentations moving forward for staff items or staff recommendations to the board. And it'll be, again, like we said, the guidance document, and these will be the tools with which we present them with. All right, if there's aren't any other questions, that was my, now we're open to open feedback and next steps looking forward to.
This is really important for staff to hear, and we'd love to hear from every director. What next steps that Brian's talked about are you really looking forward to, that you want to be sure you see and are part of?
I can start. First of all, I'm looking forward to not having 4 o'clock meetings. Secondly, I really appreciated the strategic plan can really be an outwardly focused document. And those last couple slides that Brian had about what him and his HR team are working on towards internal culture and culture club, and just really bringing the employees into the fold of not necessarily long range planning, but really bringing them into the fold about culture and values and buy-in and bringing the workplace to the forefront of these discussions. I'm really looking forward to that portion of the strategic plan, which I think is really cool that we've had such a broad focus on this plan, not just externally, but a really comprehensive internal focus. Because I've been a part of a transformation like that in an organization, and it's really valuable. And I really look forward to staff rolling that out and working on staff to make this happen. So it's really cool. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. I mean, we have a lot of nuts and bolts in the other direction as far as what we're doing with the plan and with our ideas and concepts for the community. And that's all really good. And I think we've really elevated how we approach complex problems with our community. And I look forward to us continuing to break down the silos and move forward with progressive thinking. So.
Can't talk.
All right, thank you. Tony?
I'm just going to say I really appreciate that, Tony. I think those were really, really important to recognize that this is a document that is focused inwards and outwards at the same time. And I remember this was a recent workshop, just super curious about what was going to be the result of the employee meetings with marrying action to values. And I just thought that was so helpful. And important to really draw those lines explicitly for all of us, to just, this is what that looks like, and to help all of us. And that's what, this document does, this, as you pointed out, Tony, in many different levels. And it's, we can refer to it, for ourselves also as a board, and run it through our minds. Well, what is this initiative? How does it fit in our goals? How does it fit in our value system? How does it fit? You can run it through your own system now that we have this strategic plan to help us do that. And before we bring it to staff and give them yet another thing that we're interested in pursuing. So I think that's, next steps. I guess that was more focused for the board that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to using this document to help me gauge the value of my ideas. I have a tendency to be bing, 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 bing. How about this? How about this? How about this? And this helps me bring those under control a little bit and evaluate them, a tool to help me evaluate my own internal workings and say, you know what, that needs a little more work before you throw that out on the table for everybody to chew on. So I bet you will all appreciate that. And I'm also looking forward to more education from the community. That was something that my focus groups really brought up, was a willingness for members and groups within our community to come before the board and with workshops to help staff and just different perspectives in the community and present to us. We've had things like that happen before, like with the Mountain Housing Council, with the Community Foundation, when they were first presenting forming the Mountain Housing Council. I remember Stacy Caldwell presented to us. And I think these focus groups and all the conversations that we have instigated with the community need to be continued. And part of that continuation can be these groups coming in front of the board and helping us with workshops, continuing to educate us on what they are looking for. So I'm absolutely looking forward to that, and to help us with, again, some nuts and boltsy stuff. Just, I'm interested to see how this strategic plan itself helps us get funding to move some of these things forward, because we all know that's the, ask Mr. Salmon. And it is one of our goals, financial, being financially responsible. And this document itself is going to help us, I hope, tremendously to get that money flowing to us from wherever. I'm very much looking forward to that. So I would, I'm going to hand off now. I'm sorry. I can talk about these things forever, because I think this is just, I think it's a really great plan. I think whatever your enthusiasm is, this plan has something in it to support you. So I was hoping that, hand off the baton to Director Bender.
I can pipe in next. Sorry, my internet's kind of going in and out. So what I'm looking forward to with the next steps is, there is a lot of information that we're going through right now. And obviously, 6 months of work and all the time and the effort and the meetings and information that people have been sharing. It's a lot of information. Where I would like to see us go is, what is the PUD's position on each of these issues? Because it seems like there's a lot of information. It's like trying to come back down to a concise position where it's almost like, can you recite it in like a 2-minute elevator speech to just kind of sum it up? I know it's very complex and there's a lot of parts to it, but kind of bringing it down to the goals. Is it, I don't know. It's just, everything is just very broad right now. And so that's what I'd like to do, is see it come down more concise. I know that there's SMART goals where we can get more specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, where we add those elements into it. But there is a lot of work to be done if, depending on what the district's position is on each of these.
Joe, did you want to say anything or,
You want to go, Jeff, or what?
no, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, well, the next thing I expect Brian to tell us is how he's going to start the project. And naturally, he's going to have a committee, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to outline and identify the project. And then they're going to look into the finances and get as much information as they can as to the steps they have prepared for the progress of this project. So, and Pam, getting back to you said, was it the survey that you said they completed in a week?
The focus groups.
They what?
The focus groups.
And you know what? That just goes all back to the people that we hired to get on this strategic plan. And they're all professionals. They know what they're doing. They know their field. And that's why it's been a long process. It's been a lot of information, but it's been done very straightforward and I would say kind of organized all the way. It's an organized deal. And it's because of the people that we have, the professional people that we had working with us on this. And I kind of feel that that's just going back to their jobs, what they know what to do. And that's just want to say about our staff. Our staff, they all have their jobs and they all know what they're doing and they're doing it good. And I attributed this to the award we received. And I think that, I'm going into another realm, but I don't want to do that. That the people that we have with us, with the PUD, I think are all professional. They know their jobs and they all kind of jump in together and do it as a team, or we wouldn't have got an award like we did. And I think that's all I want to say. And I'm just looking forward to our next step here on our first project. So that's it.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, what am I looking forward to? I think containing the anxiety, the anticipation, the overwhelming feeling, it is a big document. It looks inward and outward, like Tony and Krista said. And so there's, a lot of work to be done. And, and it's apparent to me now that I know the tool you're using to track projects, to see who's working on them, what the status is, where they're stuck, workflow management. How many hours does each employee actually have to spend on this? And the management opportunities of this tool of Monday.com is pretty darn exciting. I'm looking forward to, not rushing through all these big things, because a lot of stuff has to be done, collaboration with the community, etc. still on some of these big projects that we want to push forward, feasibility studies, etc. I'd like to reiterate what Joe was saying, just, really supporting staff on just how hard they're working, the good jobs that they're doing, and really pushing the culture and the projects internally for culture improvement and that list of HR stuff that got me excited. Seeing that it's pretty amazing that it's not a one siloed strategic plan. It's broken the silos. It's thinking no box. No, so you know, and just not, I guess, not trying to accomplish too much more. You know, then what am I trying to say? We need to be realistic and have the tools to be able to manage it and work through all these big things that we're trying to accomplish in a thoughtful manner. So, and abiding by the mission statement. So it's a lot of stuff, really just looking forward to it, adopting it and having it start the rubber meeting the road on some of these one step at a time. Because it's a big leap. It's a big goal, a lot of goals, not just one. And so, you know, looking forward to that, working through it. Thank you.
Yeah, those were great comments. Director Harris, I'd like to refer you to page 24 in the strategic plan, and not now, but just I heard you are concerned about specificity and SMART goals, and that you think this is too broad-based. Just a reminder that staff has spent hours and hours putting forth projects that are available on pages 24 to 33 that are not only capital projects that the board has seen before, but important projects for district sustainability and resiliency. Every single one of those projects are measured on Monday.com. And for you just to play around with Monday.com, it's much deeper than SMART goals. It really is. So the accountability that's built into how we measure what rolls up to these goals it is here. Just wanted to point that out.
Awesome, thank you. I haven't checked out Monday.com. Jeff sounds like he got in there and checked it out and really likes it. And I'm super excited about it. So I think that's awesome. There are 87 projects listed in there. That's a lot. So that's a big undertaking. But where I was looking for is more like up to the top. Like, you know, we have the four strategic plan items. It's kind of drilling that down. Just what's our position on it? What's our position on undergrounding utilities? Is it like, yeah, we're going gung ho, we're going for it? It just trying to take all this information, just trying to simplify it so it's a little easier to understand.
Yeah, and I can help with that. That's actually a great question, Director Harris. I think that really lines itself out as we start to present these items and initiatives to the board in the coming months. And at the board's pleasure, there definitely be put in place committees to really evaluate those discussions. And from out of those committees, really determining what the district's position is on each of the initiatives. The initial work we've done so far has really been just exploring what the community's kind of the pulse of their thoughts on the initiatives, bringing in some expertise on, or maybe just some passion into the initiatives to get some voices in there on how to approach these. But as we present to the board and the board presents to itself through committees on what we've learned and what we've evaluated, I'm confident this board will be able to really make some tough decisions down the road on either to continue to pursue these or to help others pursue them. Or perhaps we determine at some point these initiatives or other initiatives aren't worth pursuing at this time and space. So I think those future workshops will really help line that out.
No, Pam, I neglected to say that in my comments that I'm glad we have the leadership team that we have that's gone through a tough 6-7 months behind us. And I am glad that they're together, and like I say, they know what they're doing. They know their fields, and they work together. And we're back to, it takes a good PUD to run it, and we're a good PUD because we got an award. And I think that's a big thing. I think that's really good. And we got it because of our leadership and I know the PUD business, the whole staff. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to comment a little bit too, and follow up with what Brian said. I really think that when you take a step back, the idea of taking a position was actually what we did not want to do as an agency on these initiatives. And it was extremely important for us to not take that role in facilitating, all of these concepts and building them into the strategic plan. That would be a dangerous position because people would not want to participate. People would want to, would shy away, saying, well, they've already made up their mind. So the position the district takes will come months from now based on this continued process of vetting these ideas, with extreme thoroughness to finally get to those conclusions. So I really think we're maybe halfway there to taking positions on a lot of these initiatives. And by design, we're halfway there. So I really think there's a lot more work to do, as everyone has said, and I look forward to that. I think really, the continued work will be to get to where Director Harris would like to be, which is what is the public wants to know what we're going to do or what our position is. And I think that that is our goal too. And we will get there when we, get to the end of this process with these initiatives. There'll be more initiatives coming down the line. These are the 4 we're focused on now. So I really think that it's too premature to develop positions just yet.
I think that was very well said, Tony. Building off of what Brian said, it's not our position, it's the community's position. That's what we're trying to gauge and to that's why we're going back and forth. It's like, okay, we need more information to make this decision. We as the board need more information. The community was very clear that they needed more information on on all 4 initiatives. That was one of the major pieces of feedback that I took away from that, is that they want more information so that they can make a decision, which will help us make our decisions. This is what I expect between the board and staff to do, is that we will take stock of the information we have and what the community so far has pointed us towards. What information do we need to move forward? What information does the board need from the community? What information does the community need from the board and from staff, experts in the fields? And then tying those to a budget and to funding sources, but it's incremental steps, and it's definitely a lot of us listening and learning to the community is really the first, and which we have been doing and are going to continue to do and to refine through these focus groups. And that's, I think you put that very, very well, Tony and Brian both, but that is what I see as how we're going to move forward with any one or all 4 or whatever combination of the current initiatives and future initiatives. So it's, and I actually, the strategic plan was only 43 pages long. I mean, it included history and it included the results of our survey. I thought it was actually a pretty concise document. There was a lot of supporting information, lots of budget. So if you want more information, it was there. But the plan itself, I thought, did a really good job of focusing our minds. So thank you.
All right. Well, it's a really great discussion. Any other comments or kind of feedback from the board on what you would like to see in the coming weeks from staff?
If you want more specificity from me, like I said, I just sort of taking stock of what we learned from the focus groups, the information that we have from the community. What is it that we still need to know? What is the information that we still need to have in order to make a good decision? And then, deciding whether we want to, what I imagine would be the next thing, which is sort of on the financial modeling of things. What does that budget look like, and where can that funding come from? What are the opportunities for funding? But that's still, I think we're still in the conversation stage. But to me, those breaks it up into, this is what we, information we have, information we need, budgets, timeline, funding. Not necessarily in that order, but certainly the first two are in the right order. What information do we have? What do we need to make a good decision?
And Krista, just to follow up on that, I think, Brian, right on pages 38, 39, and 40, 41 to 42, we have those task force meeting summaries, the goals established. I guess if I were to provide some specificity here, we've got some ideas on what those next steps would be for these four items that we have. And, I guess, you can't do all of them, right? All of, then you just get spread out. So, probably in the not too distant future, some kind of a workshop to talk really to figure out, okay, what are the next steps for each of these items and help staff prioritize that would be, just some of my initial thoughts.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing from President Finn and Director Bender, I think really what we can accomplish moving forward with the initiatives and tying in the strategic plan is a couple of workshops on some of the specific initiatives and how to move forward. So staff will definitely be putting together a couple of workshops here for the board's consideration, and just, informative workshops, and look for direction out of that.
Good.
All right. Well, the next slide that we have for you is really back to the formality of our public process here. This is an action item this evening tied to a workshop. The action item is to consider adoption of the strategic plan. There is, and I'm going to put some kind of additional information and disclaimers with this statement. There is no direct fiscal impact associated with this item. Means that this specific action isn't tied to, making a decision on a fiscal expense or monies being spent. This is adoption of a document that clearly has long-term financial impact, but this specific approval and adoption does not. And the recommendation before the board this evening is to adopt the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District's 2021 to 2024 strategic plan, including the updated mission statement. And I'm open for additional questions. Following the discussion with the board and public comment, we do want to do some acknowledgements at the end of this. So I'll open it to the board for discussion, and we can answer any questions.
Okay. Very good. Well, the first thing that I want to do is call for public comments on the strategic plan. Do we have any comments? I know we have at least one.
Yes, Madam President, we have a public comment from Steve Hollabaugh. And he requested that I read it into the record. He said, I've included some additional history to possibly be included on your website and strategic plan document. Please edit as needed. As written, so it's in the history section of the document. As written, it says, since 1980, the Truckee Donner Public Utility District has sought alternate energy sources and pursued hydroelectric plants at Boca and at Stampede, and joining UAMPS to ensure the public power model. Mr. Hollabaugh, and I did speak with him in detail today as well, provided some additional history, which is since 1980, the TDPUD has sought alternative energy sources. In the early 1980, TDPUD received a hydro allocation from WAPA. This generation was unable to be delivered due to denial of transmission access from Sierra Pacific Power Company. The TDPUD remained a full requirements customer of SPPC and received all its generation from SPPC. TDPUD joined the Northern California Power Agency in 1989 to try to attain transmission access. TDPUD finally attained transmission access in 1997 and finally able to purchase their own generation. On September 20th, 2000, UAMPS approved TDPUD as a participant in the pool project and as a UAMPS member. Since 2000, the Truckee Donner PUD has sought a variety of energy sources, including alternate energy sources.
Right on. Well, thank you, Mr. Hollabaugh, for helping add to our pool of knowledge about the history of the PUD. Now I am going to open it up to director comments, and I know we have been commenting, but I am happy to entertain more.
Madam President, I went through this. I was here when, and we couldn't buy this power from ourselves. I don't know why, what the reasons were and everything, but this is a bit of history I think we should have in this plan, so we can always refer to and always say, hey, look, we have a little blurb in that, besides our other history that's on our books anyway. But it was funny that we had this power just not more than 10 miles away, and we couldn't get to it. But then Steve worked on that, and they finally did something, and we got it. So we still have it, and I hope we can keep it, and maybe this will help us in retaining it as another reference to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any
Madam
other?
President, if I could respond to Joe's comment, if you don't mind, a little bit, and Joe Horvath would know better than me, but Joe, where the reason we couldn't get that power is Sierra Pacific Power always claimed that it didn't have enough capacity to wheel power to the PUD to allow us to bring power from other sources other than it. And it wasn't until the Alturas line was built that there was finally enough capacity, and Sierra Pacific finally couldn't argue anymore that it didn't have any power. So at that time, we were able to start to bring power from UAMPS and other sources.
Thank you, Steve. Alturas line is kind of far from us, even further. I mean,
well, it provides capacity to what was then called Sierra Pacific Power.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. It's a good history lesson tonight, as well as looking looking to the future.
Okay, we'll need a motion to add this to our plan, or do we initiate the plan first?
I think we get to adopt the plan, and then the plan is a living document, so it will be added to and subtract. It will change over time, and we can certainly add things like that to our website
Okay, good.
easily.
Good.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it part of the plan too, because it's an issue and it's close by here.
Right. Do we have any other directors have any comments that they would like to make at this time? And I'm going to look at, okay, there we go. Everybody, I can see everybody again. Just give me a thumbs up if you want to say something. Okay. I'm taking this to mean that we have had a very thorough discussion of our plan, and I'm going to say it was a very enjoyable discussion. I really enjoyed looking back at this process. I thought it was, for me personally, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to do things, how to create things, how to get what's out of your mind into the world, and it's been extremely useful, and how we can continue to do this going forward. So I, for one, am all in favor. So I will now, if anybody would like to make a motion to, where we are, to adopt the Truckee Donner Public Utility District's 2021-2024 strategic plan.
Do it, Joe.
Including yes. I'll move to adopt the Truckee Donner Public Utility 2021-2024 strategic plan, including the updated mission statement.
Huh?
We gotta have this. We're gonna have it.
Do we have a second?
I will second that motion. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jeff. Shauna, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay. You know what? Just congratulations, everybody, and really good job. The past year, I'm going to say, have been just chock full of challenges and changes and surprises, and just the preservation, the courage, the perseverance that we have had to get to this point. I just really commend all of you, and that goes way out to staff, people I can't see on my screen right now, and this community for supporting us through this. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Also, Steve Gross, for coming in when you did. It was perfect timing. Thanks again.
If it's okay, President Finn, I'd like to just do one last slide of acknowledgements. If I just have a few more minutes. And I want to echo exactly what you just said, President Finn. And I really want to acknowledge everyone's hard work in this process. The board of directors, as I mentioned, going back to last summer, really rolling up their sleeves, engaging in workshops, and having the difficult discussions along this entire path, having the great discussions too, the fun discussions. And then the willingness and courage as a board, elected board, to really bring in some new concept, new ideas to a public utility district that we hadn't, implemented or utilized in the past. I want to thank staff across all levels, the painting the landscape, the SWAT, the meetings we've had over the last year. All levels of staff have involvement, participation, and creative process in this entire adventure we've been on. The community, we talked a lot about this afternoon or this evening, and I'm again going to quote Director Laliotis about the stakeholders, not excluding anyone. And that survey process and the neighborhood focus groups, the people that took time out of their day to actually participate, not just sign up and say they like the idea, but actually showed up, participated, gave great feedback, informed feedback, educated feedback, professional feedback, and an expression of their desire to be continued involved in this process. To this day, we're still receiving information or comments that, that help us out along the way. And I'm excited about the fact that that's going to continue. We've opened new avenues of communication there. I would be remiss without giving a tremendous thank you to Pamela Hurt Associates and Pam Hobday for breaking this process down to its fundamentals, providing the framework that we could build this document with. Along this path, we've benefited in other ways, as you've all mentioned this evening. New creative ways of thinking, the Monday.com, the painting the landscape, the community engagement. This whole process, as Stephen Poncelet pointed out earlier, provides us new tools on future projects. All of the projects outlined in this strategic plan, we can now use the tools we've used in actually creating the strategic plan. And that's an exciting opportunity there. I'm looking forward to us as an agency engaging with our neighboring agencies to share this process, because it's going to require everyone in this community to be involved for this to be successful. The capital projects of construction, the pipeline, the transformer replacements, that is the traditional. We talked about traditional, innovative, and visionary. The traditional stuff that we've always done tremendously well. Director Aguirre talked about the awards we're receiving or the survey results. The traditional, we have done extremely well. Our predecessors have done extremely well for many, many years. The exciting part here now is we get to build upon that stable foundation and really build a process moving forward. So I want to thank Pamela Hurt, Pamela Hobday for guiding us along the way through this process. I think it was important that this board select an outside entity to really have an outside perspective and help guide us through this process and this end product, as we talked about, this strategic plan that we get to keep with us and carry forward and build upon in the future years. In 2024, we get to adopt the next strategic plan, and it will be the next step and even better. And so we've set the foundation. I want to thank everyone who's been involved in this, and it's been a tremendous pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, well, that was our big item for tonight. We do have a few closed sessions following, but I think I, for one, would really appreciate a break for 10 minutes or so. Is that very good?
Yeah.
Okay, thumbs up. All right, it is now 6:23. We'll see you all again at 6:33. Yay?
So, Madam President, I think before we adjourn for our recess for a few minutes, you should announce that we will be going into closed session under items 9 and 10 as listed on the agenda, or as he said.
Okay. When we come back, we will be going into closed session as per items 9 and 10 on the agenda. Does that work? But first, we'll be coming back into open session here.
We don't need to. You could say that we're going to take a recess, but when we come back, we're just going to go into open session. I'm sorry, into closed session, as you just stated.
Closed session. That's why you said that, to save me that step of coming back to open session. Okay, it's all coming together here. Perfect. Okay, well, we will see everybody now at 6:24, so 6:34 in closed session.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
See you all on the other side.
Okay,